The air in the courtroom was thick with anticipation. Every creak of the wooden benches, every rustle of paper, seemed amplified in the tense silence. The jury, a mix of men and women from different walks of life, sat with expressions ranging from curiosity to dread. They knew the gravity of their task, the weight of the decision that lay ahead. Detective Jake Harris could feel the weight of countless eyes on him. It wasn't just the eyes of the jury or the spectators. It was the eyes of the entire city, waiting for justice, demanding answers. He adjusted his tie, the knot suddenly feeling too tight. His mind raced through the evidence, the testimonies, the countless hours spent piecing together the puzzle. He had been in this position many times before, but today felt different. He was used to the pressure of his job, but this case, the trial of Victor Shaw, was different. The stakes were higher, the scrutiny more intense. Every detail, every piece of evidence was under a microscope. This time, it was personal. The victims weren't just names on a file. They were people he had known, families he had consoled. The weight of their loss bore down on him, fueling his determination to see justice served. Across from him sat Victor Shaw, the man accused of 3 brutal murders that had shaken the city. Shaw's presence was a stark contrast to the somber mood of the courtroom. Shaw, with his steely gaze and an air of unnerving calm, seemed unfazed by the gravity of the situation. His demeanor was almost defiant, as if he believed himself untouchable. His lawyer, a slick man named Richard Cutler, known for his courtroom theatrics, whispered something in his ear, and Shaw smirked. It was a smirk that sent a chill down Jake's spine, a reminder of the cunning and ruthlessness they were up against. Amanda Reyes, the prosecuting attorney, was a force to be reckoned with. She had built her career on taking down criminals like Shaw, and she wasn't about to let this case slip through her fingers. She had a reputation for being tough, relentless, and she had dedicated her career to seeking justice. Her presence in the courtroom was commanding, her arguments sharp and precise. But even she seemed to be feeling the pressure of this case, the weight of evidence circumstantial at best. The burden of proof was heavy, and the defense was ready to exploit every weakness. Jake had spent countless nights going over the details of the murders, the victims, the crime scenes. He had pored over every piece of evidence, every witness statement, searching for the key that would unlock the truth. He knew in his gut that Shaw was guilty, but proving it was another matter entirely. His instincts, honed by years of experience, told him that Shaw was the killer. But instincts weren't enough in a court of law. The lack of concrete evidence was a gaping hole in their case, a hole that threatened to swallow their pursuit of justice. The defense would argue that the evidence was circumstantial, that there was no direct link to Shaw. It was a daunting challenge, but Jake was determined to see it through. The weight of evidence, or the lack thereof, hung over the courtroom like a dark cloud, but Jake knew that sometimes justice required more than just evidence. It required resolve, determination, and the unwavering belief that the truth would prevail. The trial had become a media spectacle, the courtroom packed with reporters eager to dissect every word, every gesture. Cameras flashed incessantly, capturing every moment, every flicker of emotion. The air was thick with anticipation, the tension almost palpable. Journalists scribbled furiously in their notepads, their eyes darting between the judge, the lawyers, and the defendant. The public's hunger for every detail of the case was insatiable, and the media was more than willing to feed it. The victims' families, their faces etched with grief and anger, occupied the front row, their pain a tangible presence in the room. Mothers clutched tissues, fathers sat with clenched fists, and siblings stared ahead with hollow eyes. Their collective sorrow was a silent, powerful force that filled the courtroom. Each day they relived their worst nightmares, hoping for a semblance of justice, a sliver of peace. Their presence was a constant reminder of the human cost of the crime, a stark contrast to the legal maneuvers playing out before them. Jake could only imagine the burden they carried, the agonizing wait for justice. He had seen the toll it took on them, the way it wore them down day by day. He felt a deep sense of responsibility, a need to see this through, not just as a detective, but as a human being. The weight of their expectations was heavy on his shoulders, but it also fueled his determination. He knew that every piece of evidence, every testimony, was a step closer to the truth they all sought. He had met with the families, looked into their eyes, and promised them he would do everything in his power to put their loved one's killer behind bars. Those meetings were some of the hardest moments of his career. He had to balance his professional detachment with the raw emotions of the grieving families. He offered them words of comfort, but he knew that only justice could truly ease their pain. His promise was not just a professional obligation, it was a personal vow. But as the trial dragged on and the prosecution struggled to present a solid case, doubt began to creep in. The evidence, once seemingly ironclad, now appeared riddled with holes. Witnesses faltered under cross-examination, and key pieces of evidence were called into question. The prosecution team, once confident and composed, now showed signs of strain. Their frustration was evident, their stress palpable. The case that had seemed so clear-cut was now mired in uncertainty. The defense, as expected, was masterful at exploiting every weakness, every inconsistency. They pounced on every opportunity to cast doubt, to undermine the prosecution's narrative. Their arguments were sharp, their strategy meticulous. They painted a picture of a flawed investigation, of evidence mishandled and conclusions hastily drawn. Their confidence was unshakable, their performance flawless. They knew that in the courtroom, perception was as important as reality. Cutler, with his sharp tongue and theatrical flair, painted Shaw as a victim of circumstance, a man wrongly accused. His speeches were impassioned, his gestures dramatic. He wove a story of a man caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, a man whose life had been turned upside down by a rush to judgment. He appealed to the jurors' sense of fairness, their desire to see justice done. He was a master of his craft, and he knew how to play to his audience. He skillfully deflected blame, creating doubt in the minds of the jury. He questioned the reliability of the witnesses, the integrity of the evidence. He sowed seeds of uncertainty, and he did it with such finesse that even the most steadfast jurors began to waver. The jury, once resolute, now seemed divided. Their faces reflected the internal struggle, the battle between doubt and conviction. They listened intently, their expressions a mix of confusion and contemplation. Jake watched as some of the jurors started to waver, their faces reflecting the uncertainty that permeated the courtroom. He could see the doubt creeping in, the questions forming in their minds. It was a disheartening sight, but he understood the power of a well-crafted defense. He knew that the truth was often buried beneath layers of doubt and deception. He could only hope that the jurors would see through the smoke and mirrors, that they would find the strength to seek the truth. The city held its breath, caught in the grip of a case that had exposed the darkness lurking beneath its surface. The trial was the talk of the town, dominating conversations in cafes, offices, and homes. People followed every development, every twist and turn, with bated breath. The case had become a mirror, reflecting the fears and anxieties of the city. It was a reminder that beneath the veneer of normalcy, there was a world of shadows and secrets. The murders had shaken the city to its core, and the trial had become a public reckoning, a test of the justice system's ability to deliver on its promise of truth and accountability. The headlines screamed of betrayal, of a community torn apart by violence. The public's faith in the system was on the line, and the outcome of the trial would either restore or shatter that faith. It was more than just a legal battle. It was a fight for the soul of the city. Days turned into weeks, each day a grueling and relentless battle in the courtroom. Witnesses were called, evidence presented meticulously, and testimonies scrutinized thoroughly. But the key piece connecting Shaw directly to the crimes remained elusive and frustratingly out of reach. The frustration was palpable, a constant hum in the background of Jake's mind, never letting him rest. He had staked his reputation on this case, poured every ounce of his energy into bringing Shaw to justice. But as the trial progressed, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, a crucial piece of the puzzle that eluded them. The defense chipped away at the prosecution's case, highlighting inconsistencies, raising doubts, and planting seeds of uncertainty. Their strategy was clear: create enough reasonable doubt to sway the jury in their favor. And it seemed to be working. Jake watched as the jurors, once alert and engaged, now seemed weary, their faces betraying their growing skepticism. The weight of the evidence, or rather the lack thereof, was taking its toll on everyone involved. He knew they needed a breakthrough, something to turn the tide, or they risked seeing Shaw walk free. The weight of the case pressed down on Jake, the faces of the victims etched into his memory. Each face told a story of a life cut short, dreams unfulfilled, and families left in mourning. The haunting images were a constant reminder of the stakes involved and the responsibility he bore to bring justice to those who could no longer speak for themselves. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something, a crucial piece of the puzzle that remained hidden. The case files were a labyrinth of information, each document a potential clue, yet the answer remained elusive. Jake's mind raced as he sifted through the evidence, searching for that one detail that would make everything click into place. The frustration was palpable, a constant hum in the background of his thoughts. It gnawed at him, a relentless reminder of the pressure he was under. Every dead end, every unanswered question only added to his growing sense of urgency. The clock was ticking, and with each passing moment, the weight of the case grew heavier. The defense continued its relentless attack, highlighting inconsistencies in witness testimonies. They were skilled at finding the smallest cracks in the prosecution's case and exploiting them to their advantage. Each cross-examination was a calculated move, designed to undermine the credibility of the witnesses and cast doubt on their accounts, questioning the validity of forensic evidence and painting a picture of a flawed investigation. They scrutinized every piece of evidence, looking for any sign of error or mishandling. The defense's strategy was clear. If they could discredit the evidence, they could create reasonable doubt in the minds of the jury. They were masters of manipulation, twisting facts to fit their narrative and presenting their arguments with a confidence that was hard to challenge. Their words were carefully chosen, their delivery impeccable. It was a performance, and they played their roles to perfection, leaving the jury questioning what they thought they knew, sowing seeds of doubt in the minds of the jury. The jurors' faces reflected their inner turmoil, the uncertainty that the defense had so skillfully cultivated. Each seed of doubt was a potential obstacle to justice, a barrier that Jake had to overcome. Jake watched as Victor Shaw, seemingly unfazed by the proceedings, sat calmly beside his lawyer. His demeanor was almost unnerving, a stark contrast to the tension that filled the courtroom. Shaw's calmness was a testament to his confidence, a silent declaration that he believed he would walk free, a smirk playing on his lips. It was a look that spoke volumes, a subtle taunt that only fueled Jake's determination. Shaw's arrogance was infuriating, a reminder of the challenge that lay ahead. The man's arrogance was infuriating, but Jake couldn't deny a grudging respect for his composure under pressure. It was a rare quality, one that made Shaw a formidable opponent. But it also made Jake more determined to see justice served. It was as if he knew something they didn't, a secret that fueled his confidence. This unspoken knowledge was a source of frustration for Jake, a puzzle piece that he couldn't quite place. It was a reminder that the battle for justice was far from over. The pressure mounted with each passing day, the courtroom becoming a battleground for truth and justice. Every argument, every piece of evidence, was a weapon in this fight. The tension was palpable, a constant undercurrent that kept everyone on edge. Jake knew the stakes were high, not just for the victims and their families. Their faces were a constant reminder of why he was fighting, a source of strength in the midst of the chaos. Each family member represented a life shattered by violence, a story that deserved to be heard. But for the city itself, the trial had captured the public's attention, a symbol of the city's struggle for justice. The outcome would resonate far beyond the courtroom, shaping the community's faith in the legal system. The outcome of this trial would have far-reaching consequences, affecting not just the immediate parties involved, but the entire city. It was a test of the system's ability to deliver justice, a measure of its integrity and effectiveness, shaping the city's perception of justice and its ability to protect its citizens. The verdict would be a statement, a declaration of the city's values and its commitment to upholding the law. For Jake, it was a fight worth every ounce of effort, a battle he was determined to win.